video, I'm going to talk to you about Unit 6, Day 22, Lesson 11b, Graphing from the Factored Form. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take a lesson on Google Slides and translate it to a lesson on Desmos. The reason I chose this lesson specifically is because students are already asked in this lesson to use the Desmos graphing calculator. By translating this lesson to Google Slides, you then have students only on one platform, which creates a more seamless period of math. Desmos, if you have not used it yet, is a great website because it allows students to access a lot of mathematical features that Google Slides does not have. So when translating a lesson from Desmos to Google Slides, all you really need to do is a bunch of screenshotting and copying and pasting, and I'm going to show you what that looks like now. So you go to desmos.com, browse activities, custom on the sidebar, new activity, Unit 6, Lesson 11b. Okay, so now I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm going to copy the title here, and I'm going to copy this text just from my title slide. Note is a feature that allows you to add text to a slide. I'm going to bold this. Okay. So Desmos is not necessarily as aesthetically pleasing as Google Slides may be when you're typing text, but that's okay because the mathematical features are really useful. So if I preview it, again, it doesn't look as beautiful, but you still have the gist of the lesson goal. What I might do is like take that out and put it here. Unit 6, Introduction to Quadratic Functions, Day 22. I mean, it's up to you. You know, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. Okay. So now I have that done. So now I'm going to add a slide to add my warm-up. I'm going to type in introduction/launch. And I'm going to add a sketch. And I'm going to explain in a minute why. So I'm going to go here. And I'm going to go to my warm-up slide, and I'm going to screenshot this graph because I want students to have access to viewing it. And I'm going to click sketch, and I'm going to drag it to the custom image. You can also just upload an image. And then I'm going to add this. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. This. What do you notice? What do you wonder? That's the first question. So I'm going to do a note. What do you notice? And I'm going to give students a chance to answer that question. Do another note. I'm dividing it up so students are answering it in two different spaces. Oops. And then I'm going to do another text input. Okay. I'm checking off show students their classmate responses because I want students to actually view what each other is saying for the notice and wonder. I want them to get ideas. I want them to think about what their classmates chose to write. You might not check that off if you're doing some type of assessment or exit ticket because you don't want them to be copying each other's responses. You might want to get real-time data. You also might not check that off. You also might check that off if you're asking students to explain an idea because that's a way for students to review each other's responses and revise their own. Okay, I'm going to show you what this looks like. It looks really bulky on here, but then when you actually have it on Desmos, on the student view, it looks really nice. And the reason I chose to put this in as a sketch instead of an image is because students can actually write right on the image, which helps like you would be able to write on a piece of paper. Students can annotate, they can mark things off, they can actually write their the coordinates of those points if they would like right on the image. So it's just a way to kind of give them access to annotation tools that they wouldn't have on a computer otherwise. Okay. So, and the image would be right here, and that's the sketch feature. And if you look at sketch, you can do a graph, a blank background, or you also have the access to the image. So I'm going to duplicate this. So I click duplicate, and now I have the same slide again. I'm going to delete this component and delete this component. The reason I duplicated that screen is because on the next slide, it's the same image with just a different question. Find the values. Paste that in. Text answer box. Now I'm not going to check this off because I want to see how they actually do on this. They find the values and they show or explain their work, and there's space for them to do that. Okay, add another slide. Now we're already on the explore portion. So I'm going to type explore. And it asks students, the functions f, g, and h are given. Predict the x-intercepts and the x-coordinates. I'm going to copy that. Put a note in. Copy that. And take that out. Predict the x-intercepts and the x-coordinate of the function. And I'm actually going to chunk this into 2 separate questions. So predict the x-intercepts of the function. Predict the x-coordinate of the vertex of the function. And then I'm going to have them do a math input. And a math input is a little bit different because students are not, they don't have a big text answer box. They haven't, you can check off ask students to explain their answers if you would like. For this one, we don't need an explanation. We just want to see their responses. Show students their classmates' responses. Maybe for the first one, I will. And they're asked to do this 3 times. So I'm going to duplicate this 2 more times. And I'm going to copy, I'm going to copy this function in for the first one. I'm going to copy this function in for the second one. And maybe for this one, I don't have them show their responses. I want them to try this one without anyone's help. And you know your students best. You can decide what you check off. Okay, so just pasting in. Now I'm going to add the next slide. The next slide says, use the Desmos graphing calculator to graph all the functions on the same coordinate plane. Use the graphs to check your predictions from the previous slide. Insert a screenshot. Well, this is really cool because I don't need to actually do a screenshot because I can add the graphing calculator to here. So graph all 3 functions on the same coordinate plane. Use the graphs to check your predictions from the previous slides. We don't need the screenshot part. Okay, so now we'll put the graphing calculator on here. When you have a graphing calculator, you can't add anything else. So that's why I put all the directions up here so I can put the graphing calculator on the same screen. And they'll show up just fine. So that's the one thing about Desmos is like things look really bulky on the teacher end, but then on the student end, it's really streamlined and seamless. Okay. And so then they can graph just like they would on the previous, on a regular graphing calculator. Zoom out, and there's the first one, and then you might do the second one, the other one, copy it. Right, and this, I'm just showing you what it would look like for the students to do this. Oops. Where was it? For some reason it didn't copy. Okay. And notice how that one's in purple, so it's nice because Desmos does them and does make them in different colors. Okay. Now, the next question says, sketch a graph that represents the expression x minus 7 and times x plus 11 that shows the x-intercepts of the vertex. Insert a picture of your paper or use Desmos. Explain how to find the y-coordinate of the vertex. So for me, I'm just going to want them to use Desmos. So I'm going to say sketch. So I pasted that in. I'm not going to give them a choice of what they do. Okay, and I'm going to take this out because I can't put anything else on this slide. So now I'm going to put the graphing calculator again. I'm going to add another slide. And now I'm going to actually just say, explain how to find the y-coordinate of the vertex from the graph on the previous slide. From the function. And I'm going to actually copy the function again from the expression. Copy that. This is still the Explorer. Okay. And then you're finally at the summary. So this is how can we make the explanation stronger? How can we make the justification clearer? So for this, you can actually use text input. So you could say, read your classmates' responses and use them to make your justification stronger and clearer. This is one way to execute this part of the lesson. You could do the stronger and clearer routine in a number of ways that we've talked about in the past, or even other ways that you can use Desmos. And then summarize what is important to pay attention to when graphing quadratic functions in standard form, factored form. So I'm going to put summary. I'm going to put a note so they could type that in, and I'm going to give them a chance to text input. And for this, it's up to you. Do you want them to see each other's responses? I kind of like for the summary for them to see each other's responses. Okay? So this is just a basic way to translate, just using the note feature, the text input, and the math input. How can I translate, and media or Sketch, how can I translate from a Google Slides to Desmos? I'm going to press preview. You could see the whole lesson. It's pretty seamless, accessible to students. And then I'm going to click publish. And now the lesson lives, and you can assign it to students. Okay, so in summary, Desmos is a great platform to use to give students access to mathematical tools that they would not otherwise have access to on